Hi Scorpio, welcome. This is Taurus Tarot. I'm Joy and we are doing an energy reading for the month of May for you, Scorpio. Okay, so what is the energy for Scorpio for the month of May? Ooh, King of Cups flew out. It's funny because I was feeling that that you're a little bit lonely. I mean, makes total sense with most of the country and the world, almost. Maybe not most of the world, but much of the world, self-quarantining or isolating themselves. That can be lonely, for sure, definitely. Sometimes the world's a lonely place when we're not trying to isolate, And so I think that's why for some people, this whole self-isolation thing, some people have really taken it as an opportunity to learn how to be with themselves, and really learn how to like themselves, because you cannot be with yourself if you do not like yourself. So, and it sounds like such a simple thing to like yourself, but there's very much a process that you have to go through to really not just be able to say, oh yeah, I like myself, but to really embody it and to really make it true. Yeah, most definitely. But I feel like but you're somewhere along that within that process. You're somewhere along the line in that process. So you may be at the point of feeling lonely and learning how to be with yourself, or maybe you're just in that kind of painful loneliness and you haven't yet got to the place where you're okay with being with yourself. Perhaps you're further along in that little journey that you have gotten to the place where you are really okay with being by yourself, because you really do like yourself and you really do practice self-acceptance and self-love, and that is a wonderful thing, and that opens up a whole lot of doors for you when you are in that space. So yeah, wow, okay, interesting. So we have the King of Cups, the Nine of Cups, the Sun, and then I kept fishing for one more card and Death fell out. So these are pretty big themes for you. Some really good stuff going on, I'm feeling. So, I mean, definitely, there is definitely an element of love, emotion. The King of Cups is he knows what it means to be in tune with his emotions. He knows the value of his emotions. He has felt every emotion and acknowledged it within himself, and embraced it and processed it to understand it, and now he's come out of it in a place where he's learned from those emotions, and he's also learned how to and when to express those emotions, and when to hold them back a little bit. So I guess the feeling from this is really that there's a lot of emotional balance coming your way. If you haven't already gotten there, there's definitely some emotional balance coming into play. It feels really good. Because sometimes when someone doesn't express a lot of emotion, they can come across as detached, and it can be challenging to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't express a lot of emotion, especially if you are one who does express a lot of emotion and does understand emotion. But there's also value in knowing when it's appropriate and when it's beneficial for you, and when it just isn't, and not just for you but for others around you. And so the King of Cups really has that wisdom of being in control of his emotions and recognizing the feelings within himself, because he's had a very colorful emotional experience, throughout his life. So he recognizes them, he acknowledges them, he acknowledges that they're coming up from, some sort of thinking pattern within him, and but he's able to respond to them in a very even way. I think in Buddhism they call that equanimous, or equanimity, just to be very even and balanced. So that's what I'm feeling for you, but that is only really coming out of, also I feel, of this process of going through your emotions and really feeling them, understanding them, processing them, and understanding that they are, the color of life, really, and that there's nothing wrong with them, and there is no such thing as, like, boys don't cry, or I don't know. Gosh, I don't know what other kinds of emotions. I mean, when you say something like that, like boys don't cry, it's like really saying that, if you're a male, then you shouldn't be expressing sadness in that way. Oftentimes, I think for males, it's more culturally acceptable, especially in America, where that you deal with those sort of feelings, those feelings of like sadness or loss or grief, or those kind of feelings that are typically viewed as feminine feelings. For men, it's like the culture standard is that they should express it in a more masculine way, and sometimes that comes out as anger, or those kind of more aggressive sort of emotions. So this is really, though, someone who really, if they're sad, it's not going to come out of as anger. They're going to be able to express sadness and acknowledge it as sadness, whereas some people, they may feel sadness, but because they were taught to never pay attention to that feeling, or to bury it, that it comes out in anger. And it's a very subconscious process, right? So there oftentimes are a lot of males who that's the norm for them. Expressing sadness, even acknowledging it, is really not something that is natural for them. Okay, so I'm gonna stop with that right there. We also have the Nine of Cups for you here. So I just heard partnership. I just heard that there is some kind of partnership coming out of this, and it feels like something that you've really been waiting for and wishing for, and it feels like that emotional connection that you've kind of been longing for, because you've been a little bit lonely. I feel like it's coming for you. Like it's something that's coming for you, and that it's going to result, or has resulted in, because time is really relative in all of this, right? In a really solid, secure relationship, like really based in intimacy and emotional connection. Yeah. And it's beautiful for you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But it really only happens after you're able to put certain ideas and frameworks of thought to rest. right? Like, for example, like boys don't cry or something like that, or even for women. I mean, that might have been something that was discouraged. You know, if even it could have been, even if you're a woman, that could have been discouraged, right? Like, oh, stop crying. What are you, a sissy? Or, you know, hey man, you know, parents, they do their best, but sometimes they just don't have the skills, and sometimes those are the things that, you know, come out of your mouth, out of their mouth, and then we internalize that, and that becomes part of our framework moving forward. And at the moment, it may have worked for us, right? Like, you know, if you're gonna get called a sissy or a ninny, or be, you know, picked on, because you cry when you're sad, then you're gonna quickly learn that it's not okay to cry. But as you get older and you know, leave the family unit, or you know, move into different situations and scenarios, you cannot carry that framework with you. You have to be able to let it go, because it no longer applies, right? You don't have to protect yourself in that way anymore. You've left that situation. And so you can open yourself up in that way. You can put that old way of thinking, that old framework, to rest. You can let it go, especially if it's not serving you anymore, right? And you can adopt a new framework that is this. Yeah, that is the, you know, somebody who is really able to experience the colorfulness and the beauty of you know, this human life through the different emotions that they allow themselves to feel and acknowledge, right? And acknowledging your feelings, your emotions, that's going to help you in all areas of life. It's going to help you at work. It's going to help you in relationships. You know, it's going to help you, you know, whatever. It's just as you go through your day and you meet people, or you come across, you know, people in the supermarket or at restaurants, or whatever. Restaurants kind of, yeah, well, that's a whole nother story. But you know, your emotions really help you to communicate, right? So for example, if somebody says something to me, and I find it offensive, and I immediately interpret it as that person is trying to be mean to me, I may react in anger, right? But if I am more aware of my emotions, I could possibly be more aware that what that person said was not at all intended to be offensive or insulting, but perhaps I took it that way because in the past, you know, people have said things like that and meant it in a very different way, right? So the point that I'm trying to get at is that we have to be very clear about the emotions that we feel. So when that person said that, was the emotion that was triggered really anger, like how it wants to come up, right, as a reaction? Or was the emotional feeling that was triggered actually a feeling of lack of self-worth, right? And so those are two very different things, very different. Anger, feeling angry, and feeling a lack of self-worth, right? And so you really have to be able to distinguish between those two feelings, so that you can communicate that to the other person, or even so that you can just communicate that to yourself, and so that you can gauge the appropriate response rather than just reacting. Yeah, that's how our emotions are very important for us in our ability to recognize our, you know, our thoughts, our actual, like, you know, there's oftentimes there's these thoughts that are behind the triggered emotions, right? And so the emotions actually help us to recognize that thought pattern that is behind it, and then be able to engage with people in a more intimate way by being able to express their feelings and emotions. Okay. So this is really good for you, though. This feels really, really good. And I think, you know, for some of you it's going to be like discovering love with someone else, or for some of you it's really going to be discovering love within yourself. But there's definitely an element of love and emotional fulfillment and intimacy and connection for sure. And it just absolutely feels wonderful, and it's absolutely wonderful for you. Yeah, but it really only comes after you're able to put certain things to rest, like certain ideas and beliefs and thoughts and frameworks that you may have developed when you were younger, or, you know, in a different space or something like that, that served you then but is no longer serving you now. And so you have to put them to rest. You just have to put them to rest. And it doesn't mean that, you know, those ideas might not circle back around again. They very well might. If you find yourself in the situation where you need it, or you need to operate by those frameworks again. But right now, is that what you need? Is that what is best serving you? Right? Okay. So and this all comes back to being conscious of your thoughts, being conscious of your emotions, being conscious of your actions and reactions, and being conscious of having responses rather than reactions, right? You have to be aware of all of those things in order for this to work for you. Okay. So Scorpio, that is the reading for you. I feel really happy for you. I feel like this is a really good thing for you. Like some really great things are happening for you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just remember too, I feel like I need to say this, you know, even though this is a May reading, it's like this is the energy for May, but at the same time, it's gonna happen at you know, slightly different times for everyone. Okay. You know, some people might be a little bit ahead of that energy, some people might be a little bit behind it. You know, it's a general reading. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up so I can keep making more videos. And yeah, aloha, take care, and namaste.